I'm going to be reading again from Mind and Evolution as assessed through reviews of major texts. The Great Evolution Mystery by Gordon Rattray Taylor, 1983. Who'd be sufficiently qualified to check out the prevailing theory of evolution? How about this? Education, Radley College and Trinity College, Cambridge. Career, journalist, culminating in becoming chief science advisor to BBC Television. Research, 15 books, including a main selection of Book of the Month Club, The Biological Time Bomb. And how about having him devote the last 2 years of his life to the job? Meet Gordon Rattray Taylor. Quote, "The fact of evolution is not in question. What is in question is how it occurred, and whether natural selection explains more than a small part of it. As we shall see, a great many eminent biologists have raised this question, but such has been the confidence and aggressiveness of the old guard that their views have been swept under the carpet and ignored. Unfortunately, biologists tend to confine themselves to their specialty, so that the facts which convince them are dispersed in many scientific papers. I will try here to bring some of them together for assessment." End of quote. Darwin's critics complained he first came up with his theory of natural selection, then looked for illustrations to support it. Taylor counters with the same tactic. Doubting natural selection, he comes up with just as many illustrations drawn from the scientific literature to challenge it. To feel the force of his argument, you have to read the entire text. Just as in Darwin's writings, individual illustrations may not withstand criticism. It's the weight of evidence that's convincing. Being so dense with illustrations, quotes, and arguments drawn from the scientific literature, Taylor's book is hard to summarize. Halfway through, though, he provided this list of a dozen areas where the theory of evolution by natural selection seems either inadequate, implausible, or definitely wrong. Here they are. Number 1. The suddenness with which major changes in pattern occurred and the virtual absence of any fossil remains from the period in which they were alleged to be evolving. 2. The suddenness with which new forms radiated into numerous variants. 3. The suddenness of many extinctions and the lack of obvious reasons for those extinctions. 4. The repeated occurrences of changes calling for numerous coordinated innovations, both at the level of organs and of complete organisms. 5. The variations in the speed at which evolution occurred. 6. The fact that subsequently no new phyla have appeared and no new classes and orders. This fact, which has been much ignored, is perhaps the most powerful of all arguments against Darwin's generalization. 7. The occurrence of parallel and convergent evolution in which similar structures evolve in quite different circumstances. 8. The existence of long-term trends, orthogenesis. The appearance of organs before they are needed, pre-adaptation. 10. The appearance of overshoot, or evolutionary momentum. 11. The puzzle how organs once evolved came to be lost, degeneration. 12. The failure of some organisms to evolve at all. End of quote. Some chapter subtitles may help illuminate the breadth of his challenge. what Lamarck said. Major steps in evolution. Animal evolution seems to have occurred top-down, beginning with phyla. Why is evolution so jerky? Did Darwin account for coordinated change? No. The directiveness of evolution? Did Darwin account for the origin of species? No. Can geneticists rescue evolutionists? No. Despite its density, his text is easy to read. As it goes along, it increasingly refers to planning. I thought, am I going to get a nasty surprise in the final chapter? Chance of purpose? Actually, no. Taylor does not resort to a Teilhard de Chardin-like mysticism to account for evolution's meaning. Instead, he abstracts the detailed objections covered in earlier chapters under 5 headings. 5 headings. Number 1, Neo-Darwinism assessed. Taylor summarizes the objections he's detailed elsewhere. Is evolution Darwinian? Taylor considers the flow of information required for adaptation. Quote, I want to turn to the vexed question of Lamarckism. It is of central importance because Lamarck stressed the evolutionary importance of behavior. In the evolution of mammals, it is emphatically the case that adaptation is not so much due to new environments as to new modes of life, as evolutionists are slowly coming to realize. That is, mammals evolved by creating new lifestyles to which their bodies and genomes then adapt. He sums up this section with, quote, the error biologists have made is to think in terms of simple chains of cause and effect. But in a system which is equipped with feedbacks, we have systems of decisions which include cause and effect in common. Each part is thus just as much cause as effect. I'm going to read that again. The error biologists have made is to think in terms of simple chains of cause and effect. But in a system which is equipped with feedbacks, we have systems of decisions which include cause and effect in common. Each part is thus just as much cause as effect. Where is evolution going? Quote, if there is one solitary fact which emerges distinctly from evolutionary studies, it is that evolution is not the execution of a consummate plan, divine or otherwise. Nevertheless, even if evolution does not express the execution of a plan, it may still have an identifiable trend. What it does seem to have been, if nothing else, is evolution in complexity. But is growth in complexity the object of the operation or simply an inescapable side effect? Darwin puts ability to survive as the prime criterion of evolutionary success. But something more than survival seems to be at work. Nothing in Darwin predicts a continuous increase in complexity. 4. Order from disorder. He introduces the concept of self-assembly. Nor is self-assembly confined to amino acid chains, the tubules which the electron microscope reveals in the fine structure of the protoplasm assemble themselves. The raw material of flagella is flagellin. Placed in a dish, it rapidly forms itself into isolated flagella. Collagen assembles itself readily. So do ribosomes, more surprisingly. Many kinds of membranes are self-assembling, and there is some evidence that mitochondria may be. End of quote. Taylor refers briefly to non-equilibrium thermodynamics and the early work of Stuart Kauffman. Matter of form. This is 5, matter of form. quote from Joseph Needham. The central problem of biology is the form problem, end of quote. Alas, it is an unsolved problem, and the Australian biologist W.E. Agar, who has studied it, concludes that how the organism is produced from relatively formless components is the greatest enigma of biology. Until we understand the laws of form, we are in no position to say we understand the mechanism of evolution. Progress has been prevented by the rigid dogmatism of the Neo-Darwinians. Taylor ends his text with, quote, "There is a growing recognition that life is more complex, even more mysterious than we have supposed. The possibility that some things will never be understood no longer seems so frightening as it did. The probability that there are forces at work in the universe of which we have as yet scarcely an inkling is not too bizarre to entertain. This is a step towards the freeing of the human mind, which is pregnant with promise." The Great Evolution Mystery is a highly effective response to the question, show me any evidence Darwinism isn't the mechanism behind evolution. Reading it can shore up your confidence that there's substantial scientific evidence against the modern synthesis. Published back in 1983, true, but that was 7 years after The Selfish Gene, which for many people remains the last word on evolution. It's more recent than just about anything children are told about evolution in school today.